Okay, this is March 22nd. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're meeting of the Blue Ribbon Commission. We are our agenda calls for just one thing today. Before I forget, decisions made by this commission are subject to appeal. Please consult your attorneys if you feel the need to do that. So we only have one item on the agenda today, and that is to discuss the draft report, which was to be submitted to the council April 1, which was sent to you all by Wednesday, as promised. So hopefully you've had some time to review it, make some suggestions, questions. And what I'd like to do is to maybe, I've got the document in front of me. What I can do is we can go around the room and I can make annotations and notes and so forth of recommended changes. Would that work for everybody? And then I'll just put them in. I'll use that comment thing, that cool comment thing that Word has. So, shall we begin? Patrick, you're sitting down there at the end.
You want to go page by page? Would that make sense? Just that way, it's easier for you to take notes if we're not jumping around. Okay.
I'd probably do it either way, but that's a very good suggestion, Dave.
I'm going to sit near you since I left mine.
Come on over.
As usual, I'm organized.
Well, after writing this report and reading department comments about how technological innovations that would allow them not to conduct business with paper, to conduct it as much as possible using computer digitalized documents. In the spirit of that, I'm using a digitalized document instead of a printed one.
That's beautiful.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for that explanation.
All right, Patrick, shall we begin?
Yes, absolutely. So in my review, this is actually a good thing for me. I did not really see any recommended changes or additions to the parts that I saw. Now, when I did look at revenue increases, I don't know if we specifically want to do this, like, take example, the parking fees. I did not see a specific recommendation in terms of what that should be or a general guidance. And so that's kind of some of the things that I was looking at that I don't know if we should be doing that or...
So the way the way I approach this, because we were taking information from a lot of disparate sources, and there was a lot of overlap and duplication. And so what I tried to do is capture things in maybe using general language.
Okay.
But in terms of the parking fees, in the intermediate range, let's see where we are. One of my concerns with adopting or recommending parking fees for the near term was that the council had just approved a private vendor. Correct me on the details here. It was
On the parking?
On the parking.
Are you talking about on street?
Yeah.
No, not
We
yet.
haven't done it yet.
We haven't done it yet.
No.
We just considered
The
it.
Traffic and Parking Commission at their March meeting made some changes, but it hasn't gone to council yet.
Okay, all right. So I got that wrong.
So this changed to like one of those automated things where you use your card, is that the deal, or is it?
Yeah, we're in the process of trying to partner with somebody to overhaul the on-street system, not the garages, just the on-street.
Okay, so should we consider in the near-term revenue enhancements a increase in the parking fees given the work that's being done here? Or should that be more?
So that money's already been spent.
Good point.
But,
Because it was in the FY19 budget.
well, so it's a revenue stream over time. So
You're not monetizing it up front?
Yeah, so I don't know how much detail you want to get into here, but there's, in the 19 budget, there was a revenue assumption. In the 20 budget, there's going to be an upfront payment revenue assumption.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a revenue share over time over what the system is producing today.
Okay. So
But-
that's already,
In 19, there was a $15 million revenue assumption, which has not
Okay.
happened. And the likelihood of receiving a cash for that prior to the end of this fiscal year is complex.
Complex.
Yeah, and my question in that same realm, if this is all of the downtown area, I assume,
Downtown and Midtown, yeah.
in Midtown, okay. What if individuals come downtown to take care of business and, everybody does not have a swipe card or whatever the case might be? What's an alternative, What do we have, in other words?
So
What do we do with that?
If this goes through and we overhaul all the infrastructure, people who are unbanked or otherwise can't, don't have a smartphone and couldn't use an app, assuming that's the technology that we go to, we'll always have an option to pay.
Okay.
so there were several things within the recommendations, either from the public or from department heads or from our field work, that were adopted or under consideration. So I didn't obviously include those since they were already moving forward. But we can add something about because that was something that came out of both the police and the sheriff's department, I think. We can reiterate or support that decision, because it seems like a good one, in view of the council's concerns. So let me make a note on that, okay? And I'll get, Brian, I'll talk to you about it a little bit more detail.
Okay.
Assume that 15 million is a non-recurring amount.
It would be recurring, though, after,
The revenue share in year 3, well, yeah.
Well, there'd be
Recurring.
some split of revenue starting in year 3, but the 15 is a one-time.
Right. It's
Structure.
kind of a
Right.
fee for,
That's what was budgeted. That may not be the final upfront payment that is given, assuming we get it done by the end of the fiscal year, but that's what was budgeted.
And your letter of intent with the Atwater had the 15 in it?
Yes, but that procurement was canceled.
Okay, so it's back to.
So there's a
this.
new RFP being published.
Okay.
when does that go out?
I'm hoping today.
Oh, good.
So it's a new RFP to go out to find a vendor to do
Correct.
this again? Okay. With the hope of having it completed by when?
The contract and the first upfront payment by the end of the fiscal year.
End of next fiscal year?
This fiscal year.
This fiscal year.
So June 30th.
All right, so how likely is that?
you're not reopening the old procurement to the vendors who.
That was canceled. So the old intent to award was canceled, and a new RFP is being published today. RFQ, technically.
Yeah.
And when is the, whenever the proposal's supposed to be?
It's going to be open for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's short, okay. All right. Okay, so Patrick, I'll add some language under immediate revenue, just in support of that proposal as recommended suggested by the police department, I think. There were a number of department recommendations about parking, not just the level of the parking rates, but for example, assessing parking at certain parks, particularly the popular ones that are easy to walk to. Which I found very interesting. We saw a lot of that. Anything else?
I think I'll stop right there because I think I eat up a lot of the time. So.
Okay. John?
Well, I'm super grateful for this. A couple things. One is I don't know that it's a hard and fast April 1 delivery deadline. It was certainly anticipated that the work product would be timely for the budget process, which is clearly about to happen.
But the ordinance does say April 1, right? No? Does it?
Think so.
Margaret?
It might be 17th. What was it? Why don't I have the 17th?
I don't like to miss deadlines, John.
I love that. And
While Margaret's looking that up.
so in crafting the document, I think you were headed in this direction, but it's very useful. One is kind of process improvements or process requests. I think that in several sessions we've gotten, and you wonder if you should just go ahead and make a request. For example, GSA was getting a little bit to this of space rented by departments, not used by the department, being used by other parties. Well, what is that list? And as Nancy was saying, they only had a partial list, and that nobody had the complete list of all Metro properties being leased either for no money or some money to third parties. And
Okay.
that list would be useful. Another thing is, what is Metro's actual property inventory, and at least the property assessor's value of it? Because as people in the last year have dipped into this to pay for the operating budget, it's kind of, I don't know anybody that's actually ever seen that definitive list. Nancy also mentioned the longstanding need for kind of a facilities plan, for Metro, how we are managing real estate, what are our real estate needs going
Now,
to be.
that's in the intermediate, let's see, hold on. Evaluate Metro's real estate footprint for
Page 6,
efficiency.
if you used page numbers.
Oh, gosh.
That's one of my.
Okay.
I made my own number.
I thought that it's supposed to do that automatically.
Yeah, push it.
Just
There's
saying.
certain things you have to do to
Okay.
get to that point.
Page 6, evaluate Metro's real estate footprint for efficiency and divestiture.
Right.
And it's what I concluded from the conversations with Nancy and this commission. Metro General Services has done a good job to reduce cost and ownership of its building. Total cost of ownership is what Nancy referred to it as, through efficient use of energy and water and sound planning and construction practices. Metro should consider expanding these practices to as many Metro-owned buildings as possible, including those under the control of MMPS. The real estate footprint should be further evaluated for divestiture through competitive processes. Now, would you like to add to that?
Well, I think if you say MMPS, you should go ahead and be broader and say all Metro authorities.
Okay. Hey, Tracy.
And,
So it would be all real estate under the control of,
Metro.
well,
We
let's
wouldn't
think
want
about
to
it.
include
We
the
wouldn't-
airport.
Yes, or the airport.
Right.
But, so, the bridge building, who owns it, who rents it? The trolley barns, the rent-free, the entrepreneur center. So that would certainly be MDHA. If you were going to be and then I think that's part of the discussion of are we also providing, anybody that we're providing capital to or conceivably are providing capital to, such as MDHA, I think you would want to have a list of some understanding of what they were providing assets conceivably for free for. If they were also, with the other hand, then saying, we need some capital from you. Then I guess I didn't, but in this kind of general practice recommendations, which I think is completely wonderful, on metrics, let's go back to the beginning. Is that going to be a formal kind of request by the commute? Because,
Where are you, John? I'm sorry.
Under what you
Have you,
well, it's not under any particular category of just this, other than in the preamble, I think, of data-driven sort of metric
Okay,
information.
and that's also in, let me go to the more long-term,
Yes. You have implementation of data metrics, but then just this kind of budget metrics. And as I've said,
so under cost avoidance, recommendations include performance audits, performance budgeting, both of which would rely on performance audits, and it encouraged the finance department to develop a function dedicated to routine performance evaluations using data collected through open data sources and surveys, formal performance audits, and any information it deems helpful. So, do you want to get more specific about that?
well, just, do you want to specifically recommend that it be submitted by the departments as part of their operating budget request? The first decade of this century, or whether this is specific enough.
I'm sorry, I'm lost, John. Are you talking about the property list, or are you talking
No,
about?
I'm talking about metrics.
Metrics?
We're
Okay.
moving from kind of property list practices to just general budgeting metric practices. And talking with Talia about this, because Mike
Page 11.
Jameson has, Mike Jameson has felt,
We're going to send her to remedial Word.
what's the top of?
I spend most of my time in Excel
This
spreadsheets,
is-
it's true.
Cost avoidance is the first level of that. Well, I guess I think that this is appropriate, or just urging the finance department to restore the use of performance budgeting. I mean, Jameson has crafted a charter or amendment because he feels that is necessary to do that, to actually formally restore performance budgeting as a requirement, because only the budget ordinance can be amended by in effect, the charter. But it's a placeholder, and I think the view of this committee would be helpful in that. But I'm content simply to have it be this recommendation.
Well, and I thought, because we discussed it several times, about including, and we can include that there's an amendment that's been filed to the charter, because right now, just by way of background, all the charter says is you have to balance the budget and consider revenues and expenditures, and it really doesn't have any more guidance than that. So this charter amendment would give a little bit more specific guidance to the government.
Well, this charter amendment in the end will probably be written, and again, this commission's view would be helpful if it goes forward, would be to add to the duties of the finance director as enumerated in the charter, since the charter gives the finance director various duties. Mm-hmm. One of the duties would be including and devising performance metrics in conjunction with the departments that would be reported. And that seems consistent with the best practices by the Chief Financial Officers Association for municipalities. And I think people are beginning to do that, but I just wanted to make sure that we were, that was part of our recommendation list as well.
Well, certainly what I've gathered and aggregated here is completely in sync with that. So unless there are any objections, we could.
Well, I do want to have
Okay.
it's the council's prerogative on performance budgeting, so I don't want to step into that. But I will cite experience at the state with a process that actually got inserted as part of the income tax debate back in 2001. But it produced an enormous amount of useless work by departments because it was prescriptive. They produced documents that size in addition to the budget every year. And they were not useful in terms of focus. That may have been why, I don't know why it was stopped here, but if you don't really have I think the tie to performance auditing makes tremendous sense, because then you have something that you've identified through an audit that's a performance issue. But it can become just a spinning wheel exercise and consume staff and other time, and then just become something that, frankly, the majority of the legislators would never read it, right? I don't know that any of them ever did. It just became a thing that took up space.
Well, the hope, in agreeing with that, the hope was to have the finance director do it, not task some kind of arbitrary or, theoretical thing. But it's the question of the finance director working with the departments, agreeing on the 2 or 3 things that would annually be useful, but not to have, in effect, mayoral discretion to eliminate it, because the budget book is is viewed as supporting materials only. And so the only thing that you can really affect is the ordinance, and then this would be having the finance director include this in the supporting materials for sure, but using their discretion and managerial judgment really to amend or change. You're not going to establish what they are. You're just saying the finance director needs to provide 2 or 3 metrics.
Within the council, again, not to be argumentative, but would the council then be directive in terms of what should be adding key performance indicators or doing things that, in other ways, because that's when you start to build this, this system that becomes a burden rather than a guide and help. Right?
Oh, yeah. But the theory is you have to do it by charter, at least this is according by Jameson, but the charter change would be simply to add to the Director of Finance's duties to come up with performance metrics. And they be in charge of basically devising them and administrating them and collecting them. But you couldn't go backwards. You couldn't then just eliminate them. You couldn't,
Right.
And that would be the reason to have to do this, is that you don't all of a sudden decide, oh my gosh,
I don't like these measures anymore because they don't make me look good, and so therefore I'm not going to do them anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the logic for having something that's objective and a performance indicator. Don't get me wrong, I live by that every day. But I also, just having had the experience of having them not be useful and create a lot of make work.
Well, and that's why we're talking about this.
Well, and one of the-
And is this a viable solution for this, or in fact, is it,
I don't disagree with KPIs at all.
Okay.
Well, I'm thinking through both your points. I know exactly what you're talking about. But I also see, I've been through enough budgets where I see a lot of work that goes into something that nobody does look at. So I guess I'm thinking through, I know you want to get some hardcore metrics to evaluate, but then I'm also thinking, do you leave it up to the budget director to do that, or do you somehow cap it at 2 or 3? Because if you open it up to the council, you get 45.
Right.
But what do you want to specifically know? And then the question is, to me, it's like if you leave it up to somebody, they may pick metrics that you don't really have an interest in. So I'm thinking about, in the bigger picture of things, in this budget, we worry about affordable housing. Do we have anything in there that indicates how many affordable housing units? And it may not necessarily be tied to something specific in the budget, but it's all tied together in the budget. So would you want to know that, and how do we come up with the metrics that we want to see every year?
Well, precisely, but without micromanaging, the thought was, in effect, every finance director is going to know this anyway in negotiating the use of marginal money, and people are going to come in and say, the police department is going to go, our crime rate is this, it used to be this, we need more money for this program. So what is the crime rate, in effect, or the number of codes inspections, to use a more neutral example, could conceivably be something that everybody would want to know. And
Short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals.
Yeah.
So that they're, and in part I'm a little bit inspired by, he's in the hospital, by the accounting guru at Vanderbilt for years and years, Jermaine Bear, who would love to help on this with the finance director, saying never more than 5, but the right 3 to 5 is, of course, very important. And they're going to change in time, and that's why I just don't think you can set it into cement. I think you just have to say, share with the community and the council the same metrics that you're having people come and
Right.
talk to you about, because you can't possibly allocate money without somebody making a case.
Right, but again, they change, they could change every
They
year.
evolve, yeah.
They could stay the same for a couple of years, but they could change. But I think, we're getting into a bigger discussion, but that is, we can get over inundated with information, and we do, okay? And when we get too much information, then it just becomes information that we don't even have time to look at, and then you're not focused on the key issues that you want to. So,
To that point, it's what you do with it, Jim, right? I think that's.
yeah, it's like, okay, so we can ask for a million different things, and then you don't do anything with it because there's too much. So if you can gear it down specifically to those 3 to 5 things that you really want to know, and then you do something with that information, then you've got something. But if it's too open, if it's too generic, if you're not being specific enough, then that information gets lost. And we have a hard enough time trying to deal with the budget stuff anyway without getting.
Part of this, of course, is in the 15 minutes that they're here and you're talking to them, you have a much better briefing to see both the request and then the 2 or 3 numbers that they have been working on and living by. And then you've just taken 10 minutes of the discussion out of the 15 minutes. And, you're just making that more efficient by going ahead and saying, our maintenance budget divided by the acres that we're trying to maintain is what ratio?
And also, we're looking at transparency here. And anytime we deal with someone with money, they want to know, how are you spending my money? So if it's there, and I agree with you, when you have a lot of paperwork in front of you or information in front of you, you're not going to be as belligerent as you could be with others. But I say if we have it there and if we need it to come forth, then maybe we need to go that route.
Right.
So, was it that I don't know what happened to it before, okay? And so, I don't know whether.
The results matter, performance budgeting, is that what you're?
Were these measures that the departments themselves came up with and presented as part of their budget? Because I can see some flaws in that.
It was.
Were they the result of performance audit? Because if a performance audit, comparative kind of, cross-city comparison kind of analysis would be more useful because it would be external. It would have some validation, if you will, from outside that would tell them, yes, you're doing fine, rather than just I'm telling you I've got the Lake Wobegon effect right out of what the departmental people, out of what the departments
Above
produce.
average.
Yeah, we're always above average, right?
Yeah, so the results matter, I think, was introduced in '03. Stan, do you
That
remember?
sounds about right.
'03, and then it was ended in budget year FY '08, I think, or FY '09. No, FY '09.
When the recession hit, essentially.
Yeah, when the recession hit, and we had a change in
Yeah, that too.
courthouse. The department had, the chief complaint from a lot of departments was like, I don't do stuff that you can really measure. I think really what part of the problem was it was still really early in the development of the idea, so that you weren't taking data collected from previous and building those measures and changing those measures so that they reflected, achievements and goals and so forth. So, and a key and critical difference between then and now is the collection of data and information that is objective and that is like the survey that Brian talked about at one of our meetings, 400 households. This is information that is coming to us in a much less subjective manner than the results matter approach. So developing a performance budgeting system that relies on that data, that relies on what the public says about the job we're all doing as a government, is something that could probably be developed and refined in a way today that it couldn't have been back in 2003.
I don't know where we go with this. I think it's a bigger issue, and it's a bigger issue as well with the report itself, because we spend lots of times on reports, lots of times on task force, lots of times on committees, and it's good information that's generated, and then it goes and sits on a shelf.
Right, yeah.
And so what I'm worried about is if you don't gear down specifically, not only something like this, but on what John's talking about, and that is, again, the council goes through 3 to 4 weeks of budget hearings, and then we spend a month trying to figure it out, and then we pass a budget. What do people really want to know about what's in there? Do they want to know specifically about whether, circuit court had 8,000 more cases or whatever? Maybe, maybe not. And what does that mean in terms of looking at the budget? Or do they want to really know if what we're putting money into is actually making some type of difference?
And I see that very clearly. However, if the information is there, if we can have some way, maybe a pathway that if the persons want to see more, then it's out there for them to research. But when it comes to the council, yes, I see exactly what you're saying, piles and piles of material and information that you may not need to even.
Well, and
Look at
part of this
that
goes
point.
to, you've got 40 members of the council, and if you turn them loose to ask questions, that you may, and the departments could get inundated with information
course.
that ends up not being utilized at all.
Of course.
So that's, all due respect to the members of the council.
Yeah.
You do want them to have the information, but you also don't want them to go, I'm going to ask this department 5 questions, and then they spend a lot of time researching it, and then nobody really cared about the information, and they just put it away. How do you get, part of the whole purpose, I thought, behind this commission is to narrow down and look specifically at things. How do you get everybody focused on the things that really do matter? So, and I'll give you one last example, and I'll shut up, but, we can go through, we can spend an hour and a half on a department's budget that has, $2 million in it, okay? And we can ask them a million questions about stuff, and then we go on, it's like, we're not gonna change their budget. And we're not gonna talk to them again until next year. It's the big stuff. How do you get everybody re-engaged to focus on the big things?
Maybe we need to have them do their
Police,
homework.
education, fire,
Right.
public works.
What are the big things,
Yeah.
Whether it's procurement, whether it's this, whether public safety, whether it's what's going on with the Barnes Fund, all those specific things, those are the big ticket items.
Big ticket items.
The council has been known to spend in budget hearings, an hour talking to a very small department, and you're going like, why are we doing this? Because we're not going to, we can't really touch their budget anyway, because if you take one thing away, it'll collapse, so you just leave it alone. So how do you get people around to focus in on the things that they really can address and make that impact?
Well, so if the budget included, or the budget presentation included, let's talk about fire, that's a big department. How many fire calls, how many fires had to be put out in FY19? How does that compare to 18, 17, 16, 15, okay? Then how many EMS calls did they have to make? All right, how does that compare FY19 to 18 to 17 to 16, okay? And you look at the budget, and what you see are more equipment and more people for fighting fires in a declining trend, and less people and less equipment in an increasing trend, EMS.
Right.
Wouldn't you, as a council person, go, well, wait a minute, why are we putting more resources into fighting fires when we should be putting more resources into EMS?
I agree.
Okay,
That's what you want to know.
that's what you want to know.
And so John's getting there with his points, but do you just focus, what are the bigger picture items that you really want to focus in?
So isn't that a debate for your charter amendment in the council? And our role here is to say, put a little bit more of a framework around the charter language, which is just estimate revenue, come up with expenses and balance the budget. I'm being glib there, but.
No, you're fine. I think what I'm looking at is the charter amendment, but also zeroing in on specifically what we should want to know and not allowing it too far out there so that you end up, looking at a budget year and it's like, why did we ask those questions?
Right.
Why did we ask, how many fires did we put out? Or why did we ask a question that didn't really address where should the resources be going? So, a city this big that's growing, what are the situations? Are we understaffed in terms of the fire department because we have a lot more fires and more houses are burning down to the ground because that average length of time from the call to when they get to the fire, they're being pushed too many places. So you actually go, oh, we need more resources in that direction. I think this gives us an opportunity, particularly where you're headed, to try to be more specific and get the information we need to make sound decisions on the budget.
Well, and charter amendments pass or sometimes don't pass. Whether this is the right way to do it or not is open for discussion. I think it's an affirmative good for this group to say performance metrics are a good idea and try to work them out in a way that's not cumbersome but informative. And otherwise, right now, the budget information that's really presented is last year's budget, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's more than that is useful. But I appreciate all the time on this. I did have a couple of other kind of specific questions. One is, and I don't have Dave's facility for knowing what page it is, but it's early. The CVC 5.5 to $10.5 million, the 2%. As part of that, I don't think that that's the right number.
What have I done wrong there?
Well, in the capper, the hotel taxes collected by the county was $95 million, so 2%, or 1/3 of $95 million would be a much higher number.
But isn't $95 million include the $2 per bed per head? Isn't that the whole group of taxes? Okay, because the CVC is allocated of the 6 cents, the 6 cents in hotel occupancy tax, 1 goes to the general fund, as I understand it, 2 go to the CVC, and that leaves the balance 3 going to the Music City Center.
Well, it's just worth checking, and it's interesting that
Okay.
we're doing a top-down approach as opposed to knowing what the CVC got. I mean, that should be knowable from that standpoint. But then,
I will check that number, John.
okay, because again, 3,000 hotel rooms, ends up, if every year coming online, that would have that 2% go up at a $5 million a year clip.
Yeah.
So that's worth checking. Another question is the 5 to 10 million from the MCC. Again, there are a lot of parallel discussions going on at the same time. I don't know that that number is not really footed into anything, but I did. There are lots of reimbursing mechanisms, I think, including going through the revenue manual. I think there's a low cap charge from the MCC back to the government.
Are they not being charged low cap?
No, they are.
They are.
But then what is low cap and what is low cap in this case?
Okay.
And is police overtime a low cap charge, for example?
Low cap.
Is a reimbursement scheme between departments, that if one department spends money for the benefit of the other, that seems to be a complete path here. And then, again, not to, in the revenue manual itself, we talked about this earlier, in the authorizing ordinance, I don't know that Jim was here, by Diane Neighbors, Chris Winston, Jim Gatto, and Eric Crafton, was an ordinance requiring every 3 years for all fees and charges by metro government, all of the revenue to be reevaluated every 3 years to see if it covers the cost, the comparison to surrounding counties and cities, and any recommendations or increases or adjustments to the fee. So I find myself going here going, wow, this hasn't been changed in quite a long period of time. Wow, this hasn't been changed for quite a long period of time. So systematically going through this, it doesn't have to be this commission's group. You already have the ordinance to do that.
Okay, John, can you give me that ordinance number, please?
Yeah, it is BL 2004-298.
2004-298?
298, yeah. You were there.
I was there.
You were there.
I was 12.
And
Sorry.
Because one of the intermediate to long-term recommendations, which we heard a lot of, and we see that in the department comments, and we see that in conversations here in this room, is that there has been very little attention paid to routine evaluation of fees and cost recovery. And in fact, the planning department there was a fee study done in ‑06. Those fees were implemented, then they were repealed in '08 or '09, and then when the planning department wanted to implement the fee changes, they did that in 2016 on the 2006 study. So it wasn't even an updated study. But that theme runs across the government, it seems, John.
well, and then to that
You
end,
just need to obey the law.
there,
apparently.
well, or you stay with it. There are a whole lot of little things, such as one revenue item, 403-213, which is and again, the revenue manual is just fantastic, which is the $2 ticket tax at Nissan Stadium, right? That is charged to cover the cost of constructing, operating, renovating, expanding, improving, as well as paying debt service on the bonds, right? And it's $2 or can exceed 10%. Well, there's a lot of space between $2 and 10%. Well, with another pocket, we are paying the debt service on the stadium. So why wouldn't we go a little bit higher than
There's
$2?
a provision in the lease, and I think it's also in state law about that $2 ticket tax and any ticket tax. If you go above the amounts that are allocated or designated in the lease, then it's considered a reimbursable tax. So to the extent that you exceed, and it's now $3, there's a $2 tax and there's a $1 tax that pays for specific debt obligations at the stadium.
Right.
Once we go above that $3, that is considered reimbursable to the team. And there's a mechanism to get there, and I can't repeat that off the top of my head. I'm just letting you know that that exists.
Because we increased it with the soccer stadium.
That's different. They
Because
don't have that
Different
lease.
they were not capped by that lease at that time, but then this lease carefully capped it.
The lease with the Titans, yes, it caps it at $3. It had anticipated increasing it up to $3 at some point, back when they did like 99 or 96, whenever. I can't remember the exact date of the lease right now.
That lease has not been revisited or changed since then.
It runs concurrent with the dead.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was 96, so we did that deal.
Okay. But then, wonderful, but that's the level of careful questioning on what is about 300
Oh,
different
that's
revenue sources.
Because they did, substantial completion date is 1999
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, I think we approved the financing in 96. John, what else?
Well, so, and then the 7 to 10, I think, and in the MCC is just, I take it, following the narrative that's going on in the MOU discussion.
I put a number in there just because the 7 to 10 was not controversial, since that's the that's the discussions that are going on. But that's why this is a draft, and I'd certainly leave that open to discussion. It seems that, and I made note in here based on our conversations that, there was a lot of the tax burden a lot of the tax capacity is certainly in the core of the city is being directed to tourism. And yet so those taxes are not available for the support of that tourism, police, public works, fire, who am I missing, codes, et cetera. And one thing we could consider is a formal study of, what are those burdens?
That would be important to know.
Very much so.
No, I agree. I was part of that memo in December that I handed out, and that you also have the several paths for city reimbursement that have happened. One is to look at. Another is payment in lieu of property taxes the same way that NES does, which is an interesting gambit. The other thing, interestingly, just to draw your attention to this, is that the MCC has now sources of revenue that are separate from the creation of the original center, such as the ownership of the building of the $40 million parking lot at 5th and Broadway, which is just about to come online in the next fiscal year. Those parking revenues, which were paid for by cash, are clearly were not reallocated with the visioning of the original Music City Center. And then that itself is several $1 million. Again, part of this is trying to build towards our goal of having substantial reallocation money for other purposes.
Let me back up just to be clear on the Titan Stadium. I mean, we talk about the MCC a lot, we talk about the downtown a lot, but the Titan Stadium, for example, when they increase ticket prices, we don't get any result from that.
It's team revenue.
Okay.
But the initial part, some of it goes to stuff like fixing the stadium, right?
For ticket,
The ticket tax.
ticket tax,
The extra
ticket
ticket
tax
tax.
is dedicated to debt service.
I thought there was
So when they
Clean up the
redo the
seats and other
seats,
things,
when they
yeah.
redid the seats
When
a
they
couple
redid
of
the
years ago, who
seats,
paid
that-
for that?
General fund.
When they redid the seats, when they pulled all the seats out and put new seats in, there was also a project to fix the expansion joints. That $1 ticket tax goes to pay those revenue bonds. Revenue bonds are issued to pay for all of that work, and then those ticket taxes go to, or the debt service on those revenue bonds.
But the general fund historically has had, it's always argued that it must be much more, and we're postponing paying annual general fund costs.
On an annual basis, under the lease, the general fund is obligated to appropriate $1 million.
Okay.
And that goes to pay for some capital improvements that have transpired over the years.
But the argument is often that it should really be 15 or 20, or you're just postponing a really
Yeah,
large
right.
number
Right.
when it comes to the refinancing.
Right.
And then also in Bridgestone, we equally have a general fund expense there by contract. By contract, a success fee, or it's for the management of the building, but it's just viewed as a success fee without any performance metrics to it. But so there are a lot of these little sources of money that end up coming out of the general fund that in terms of recapturing some of that would probably be useful, but we can't.
But again, renegotiating leases or other
That's
or debt.
not gonna happen.
Debt documents, it just requires a whole lot more than just, than just asking for it.
John,
So,
anything?
thank you. I've taken too much time.
Dave?
I have lots of little editorial things.
Okay.
That I will write up and send to you rather than burden this
Okay,
meeting with them.
all right.
I do have a question about the restoring the use of budgeted savings to the budget ordinance.
Okay.
That's not new money. That's money that just currently is either going to the fund balance, or it's or is all it's doing, right? So it's the overappropriation is always a fun concept, and that's kind of what you're talking about here. I think is moving towards.
Offsetting,
Yeah.
over appropriation. Right.
You know, that's always just a forced savings. It was always just a forced savings mechanism
Right.
for us at the state.
Right.
Was that, okay, well, you're going to keep your vacancy rate at 5% this year or 7% this year so that you can be sure to revert, the money that we now have budgeted essentially out of your budget. So I guess I'm trying to understand what would be different here, and maybe I just missed it.
Well, the difference is that we don't use that tool, or we have not used that tool in a number of years. We used it for about a decade. I think it was a Bredesen innovation. And then carried forward by Purcell. And what it does is it, one, recognizes the reality, which is we're going to give you Department X $1 million in appropriation, but we know full well that 300,000 of that is going to end up back in the general fund. So let's just recognize that on the front end with a deduction there at the top. And that allows us to more accurately appropriate, because we're doing it that way. It also results in a little more appropriate environment for discussions in the council, because what has been happening is the council will have to make some changes, or they'll have to deal with some harsh choices that on the back end, because the money went into the general fund, could have been avoided. So that's
where you lost me, because I get the front end of doing it, and we used F&A to enforce it, right? I mean, just in terms of the monthly allocations.
Right.
But where I'm lost is what's the difference between it going into the fund balance and the council not being able to appropriate it out of the fund balance?
Well, they would be doing it on a lag.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's always true.
Yeah, so if you...
Because you don't know where the savings is coming from. The problem is you don't know which positions are going to be vacant, right? And so you kind of have to, that's a management issue for the department.
For the finance department, and Stan has talked about this in one meeting, which is we have this really long history, and we know which departments are going to spend all of it, and we know which departments are not likely to spend all of it. And then we have the controls in place to make sure that they meet those targets. Mm-hmm. So the choice, what has been happening in the last few years is you don't recognize those savings at the front end in the budget ordinance. You wait instead until the following year to draw that money down to balance your budget in subsequent years. So it makes, when you start drawing your reserves down, which we've done, it makes it much more difficult. Does that make sense? Am I describing that right?
I'm sorry, maybe this is a...
Well, I'm with you. I think it's just a pre-recognition of something that's going to happen. So you're moving budget savings from one fiscal year up a fiscal year.
Assuming revenues stay the same, you have a non-recurring savings that occurs in the current year, for example, of, as you say, $300,000.
Right.
Let's just say. But that money is recurring, and so it shows back up and for the next budget year and can be appropriated in the next budget year. That's where I'm having trouble getting my head through it, as to what you would propose to change here.
The only change,
because that $1 million is still there, assuming revenues don't drop, right?
Right. The only change here is that you would be recognizing the natural savings that occurs in the budgetary process.
And what happens as a result of that?
And as a result of that, the budget, the appropriations the council makes more accurately reflect what is going to happen that year.
It's more accurate, but it's also a one-time bump of revenue up a fiscal year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it becomes a non-recurring bump because if you reallocate that money, if your revenue stays flat, if your $1 million is your $1 million, you can't appropriate 1.3 million because you don't have a 1.3 million recurring. Right. This is where I guess I'm having trouble.
So in year one, you have $1 million budget.
Right.
Let's say you recognize 300,000 in budgeted savings.
Right.
Okay. So you've actually got to come up with $700,000 in dollars in order to appropriate, right? Because you've deducted the 300,000 on the front end. So in year two, you would do something very similar. So every year you would allocate on the front end whatever naturally occurring savings. And Stan, if you want to jump in here and
y'all doing fine.
Because sometimes the departments don't achieve those savings. Sometimes something happens, and they need that for X reason, just whatever it is, and so they only achieve 150,000 in savings, and then you have a problem.
Well, that's why you have a finance director and a finance department that says you're not meeting those savings, and
But it may be a good reason. It may be, again, and then, so if Department A only does 150, Department B does 300, when it only had 150 allocated
Yep.
savings. And so therefore, it all kind of can wash out. That's what we found in an entity as large as the state, that, but that's not going to be true of traffic and parking or something. I mean, there's some small department
Right.
here, but at the state, that all just kind of washes, I called it slopping out of the bucket as you walked around.
well, when I did the math, I think the average.
That explains a
Yeah,
lot.
that it does. Yeah.
So
Slopping out of the bucket.
you've got $1 billion. You've got like roughly $1 billion budget.
Right.
Okay, so what's the math for 2% of $1 billion? You should have about 200 million in
200,
what?
200 million?
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Say you spend 98% of $1 billion.
Right.
That would be
You have 20 million.
$980 million.
Yeah, 20 million, sorry.
20 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 million. Thank you. Yes, I am employed in finance. So you have $20 million on a $1 billion budget. What, if you were to put into the budgeted savings category, half of that? Because 20 million is historically kind of 20, 25 is an accurate number. So the idea historically has been, don't try and put it all into budgeted savings because you don't know what's going to happen. Be really conservative. Instead of a 2% natural unappropriated funds, make it 1% or 0.75% or something like that. That way you can be really conservative about it. And as far as I know, when we used it, it never was we never created a problem for us.
Okay.
Did it create a problem at the state?
Well, no, but we used it much differently as a tool. I mean, there were times, like when times got tough, we increased the over appropriation pretty dramatically.
Right. Yeah, you did that during the recession.
Yes,
remember?
that's right. And so for us, it was not, we didn't treat it as a natural event, if you will. It was something that we drove departments to.
Yeah.
But we treated it as non-recurring in order to balance the current year in bad times. You treated it as a way to get through June 30. And then you hoped that you would have that recurring money come back in the next year, and you could continue to at least manage at an even level if you didn't have any growth, which some years we didn't. I mean, I'm just trying to understand that in light of what you're talking about here and what's different, and what the control would be here that would be different. Is it putting the money in the hands of the council in this case to give them more control of that money, or what? What's going on?
When you're talking about the over appropriations, we call that reversions, right, or targeted savings?
Targeted savings.
It's after the budget, though.
Right, that's kind of a mid-year, it'd been a mid-year process as
Right.
opposed to a beginning of the year.
Yeah, and
We sent out budgets with that built into the departments that, they had to hit on an ongoing
At the beginning of the
basis.
year.
At the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's a reversion.
Right.
It's called a
Yeah,
reversion.
right.
You're just planning on putting money back, giving
Right.
money back.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And all you're doing here is realizing the money that in the budget, rather than putting it into the general fund on the back end. It's all that's the only difference.
You're taking it on the front end and saying, we're going to spend it.
Right.
But if you do that and you don't
You're
have
not
it-
going to spend it.
Well, they're not going to spend
We're
it.
giving you $1 million,
Yeah.
but you're not going to spend $1 million. That's what the budget is saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
At which,
But
You have
if
other
they had to
plans.
spend $1 million, they still had $1 million at the state level. So this is where I'm having an issue with it, is that if you took that 300,000 in your example and then appropriated it for another purpose, and they had to spend $1 million that year because fires, I don't mean, just pick one, you then are in a pickle.
well, the way you address that is through additional targeted savings, one, if it turns out. And the other way you address that is making sure that whatever budgeted savings number you use in the budget ordinance is conservative enough based on a long history, including perhaps the recession, that you don't find yourself in that pickle.
I wish I could predict that well.
We're lucky, we have good predictors. But,
Okay, I'm sorry,
No, any
No,
other
it's good.
comments?
It's good dialogue.
Yeah.
It really is.
Any other comments or, other than the editorial?
No, I mean, like I say, I'll put those.
Everybody needs an editor.
Well, I'm sorry, it's just tonal and,
Okay.
you know me, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I've spent years as an editor.
I think that's why we're here, right?
No, that's exactly why we're
Discuss.
here.
Okay? To discuss whatever
Yeah.
needs to come forward.
Let me just look at a couple other things. I do think the cost study, because we got to understand what the police cost study is, and I agree that whole thing ought to be really understood and dealt with on that basis. Same true with the short-term rentals, same true with, and the costs there.
Okay.
And
Let me
all those
let me
really
add,
good things.
Dave, let me add the short-term rental comment. Are you saying you want,
Well, you have it in here somewhere else, if I,
9,
yeah,
page
10.
4, recover costs associated with short-term rental?
Yeah, that was it.
Enforcement, are you suggesting that there should be further study on that?
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we ought to understand what that is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
And again, if the fire department's right on their study, that's, that's
Right.
good enough for me.
Okay. And there was a fee study to increase it from 50 to 313.
Right.
Yeah.
But does that cover just fire? Does that cover, what else does that,
I haven't seen the study. That's a good
Yeah.
question.
what
Okay.
else does that deal with?
Okay. Let me make a note on that.
There's some things I have state questions about, but that's primarily it. I'll stop at that. We talk about the KPIs and stuff. Okay.
Adam Porter?
Well, I guess since I'm the staunch one for education, I'm always looking at, how can we improve and what can we do with the dollars or the minimum amount of dollars that we give to the schools each year, and that's just across the board that I'm speaking about. But we have high expectations, but oftentimes the dollars does not meet to really help to generate that. We can no longer ask teachers to give and give and give and spend from the few dollars that they get in salary to subsidize their classrooms. So I would like to see a little bit more, to look at that a little bit deeper. And I really want everybody's feedback. I really do. And I'm saying this because I've been there, done that 34 years with Metro Schools, and having to, anytime a teacher has to spend their few dollars for the classroom as well. And I just want to hear from those of you sitting around the table here, because I haven't seen much over the last several years, even after I retired. And we say that we're putting X amount of dollars into the school system and into the classroom, but it does not always balance. So I'm open for comments on that.
Well, and I'll just say on that one, we actually, a couple different things are going on. From the council standpoint, we've asked Steve Glover, who's the head of education, to try to figure out what is specifically needed for teachers in the classrooms so that they don't have to pay out of pocket. It makes no sense that we have this much money and somehow we can't get the supplies into the classroom. So he's actually looking at that right now, and he's supposed to be working in coordination with the school board.
Great.
And then figuring out what that is, but then figuring out how do you put it in a budget? And this is where, again, you get in that philosophical stuff where it's like, okay, so let's say it's $5 million. We put $5 million extra in the school budget, but then we don't have any control over it, and we have to depend on the implementation of it to get the money into the classroom, into the teachers. So then the question is there some other way to do it where you make sure it's there and it gets spent in the classrooms?
You don't even have the visibility, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Say again?
You don't even have the visibility.
But once we give it away, I mean,
Right.
if some things pop up and all of a sudden the money doesn't get there because it's tied up someplace else. So how do you make sure? And then I think you're also asking a bigger question, which we've been sort of debating, and that is, again, how do we make sure that the money gets into where it's supposed to, into that classroom.
And it's all about accountability,
Yeah.
okay? Having been on the flip side of this, and I agree, I totally agree, that if you allocate money for certain things, then that should go directly to whatever that may be. So I would say, more or less sitting down with the powers that be, and say, let's talk. I don't think anyone would reject. I don't feel that they would. I could be wrong, but,
No, that's a
You know,
whole new concept. We should all sit down and talk through
Exactly.
this and figure out how to make this work.
no, but what I'm saying is, has any of the council members said, let's sit and talk and see where these dollars are going? So that if we need to ask for more, then we can say, yes, XYZ school over here needs a little bit more. And I was reading an article while I was away a few days ago about the same situation happening, not just in Nashville, but all over. Okay, we give you X amount of dollars, say $20 million, and we don't know what's happening to it. I say we need to ask more questions and to become more involved. I don't think anyone would object to you saying, okay, how much do you need to spend for this, this, and this?
Well, I
Has
guess,
it ever been done?
well, so it gets done a little bit, but not as much as it should. And maybe it's, I know this is the Blue Ribbon Commission, but I think
Yeah.
it does have bearing on it. And that is the question is, we don't want to, the council shouldn't overstep. onto
Overstep the
school
bound, that's right.
board. And the
You're
school board
exactly
doesn't
right.
overstep on the council.
Exactly.
But how do you bring them together in a good, sound way to discuss issues just like what you're talking about? I mean, let's just take the simple, if we could make sure that teachers had enough money to spend for supplies for the kids in their classrooms, that would be such a big win for everybody, okay? So how do we make sure that happens?
Well, I think we have to just make the effort to say, okay, let's sit down and let's talk. Have we ever asked?
Have we ever asked? I know we've talked, but have we asked?
Have we asked?
Have we asked in the last year? Probably not.
So that's a first step in saying, let's sit down and see what the budget looks like within the district and see. I think probably you would get more feedback than just sitting back and saying, well, we've never talked with them or they never talked to us. I
Well,
think
and
we should
you're
make
right.
a concerted effort to really come to some agreement to sit down and say, for financial purposes, just put it on the table. This is what we're about. And I'm willing to go with you.
The way it works, it has to go down to the schoolhouse level, right?
It has to go down to the classroom level,
Yeah.
to the teacher in the
Right,
classroom.
but the schoolhouse is where they control that budget, or isn't that the way their budgeting works?
Not
Is it-
really. Well, Chris Henson's office, and then the money is allocated from the district down to the school level.
Right, that's
But
what I'm
if
saying.
there's a certain amount of budget, you never know, and it's a tricky thing with schools. You never know how many students you're going to end with. You may begin with this number, but if you have 50 to 100 kids to move in during the course of a school year, that money has to come from somewhere. Or, you're going to look over here and say, well, I don't have enough money to put here because I have to spread it across the new kids coming in. So it's not a win-win situation. It's always looking at adjustments. How can I make the adjustments? And I know it's easy to sit back, those of us that are not there, to say, well, we gave you X amount of dollars. What happened to them? Okay? You've got to buy textbooks. You're looking at other equipment throughout the schools. You're looking at other costs. I won't go into all the details at this point, but it's a constant way of looking at how monies are being spent and also, okay, what do I have over here for the rainy day? What if something breaks down? What if there's, what if I need to hire a new teacher, or whatever the case?
One of the things that and I included it under this real estate footprint, is the MMPS footprint is huge. I've got 21.7 million square feet. And in some cases, it's 50 to 60 to 70% occupied. Maintaining that real estate, the costs accrue to them, that's dollars that don't get spent. Real estate isn't, to me, it's not as personal as teachers, and when you start talking, well, let's talk about your real estate footprint.
Yeah.
That might be a good place to start, because that's money that could be in the classroom. It's not.
Yeah. And also, to piggyback on that, buildings that are being used other than for purposes other than a classroom teacher, then, how much revenue are we getting from those buildings that are being
Right.
used by other entities?
Right.
So if that money, if we're collecting rent, for instance, and I'm not beating up on anyone, but schools that, like Kirkpatrick, that's being used by a charter school.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that money that's going to Metro Pot, or just how is it working? So those are the kinds of things. I mean, the building is being used, yes, I think it's a wonderful thing because someone is there, someone is occupying it. But if they're not paying the rent per se that they're asked to pay, then that's a negative, in my opinion, from the budget within the school system.
There's your opening.
No, I'm sitting here thinking about it.
And then not just those buildings, but other buildings that
understand.
are occupied by other entities.
So my big issue kind of falls into what you're talking about, and that is how do you take a report like this and make it into something that's usable and that doesn't get put on the shelf?
Right.
Okay, so I think it's April the 1st is when it's due. I'm not sure if the council's going to come after this group and say, well, it's not here April the 1st, where are you? It turns in April the 17th. I know you like to be on time, but if you need more time,
Well, if the vice mayor tells me we have more time, then
I just want what I would like to see is the report that is functioning, that doesn't go away, but that
Right.
keeps going.
Right.
So the question is, you take the core values at the beginning of the thing, the steps that we can take now.
Right.
You can always hold on the other ones, but I think enough of us have been around where if you give us 25 things, we won't do any of them.
Right.
If you give us 3 or 4, we might actually do a couple of them. So how do you?
That's why I did the highlights.
I know. I understand it. So where does it go? But then I'm just thinking about something that Gracie said, because she called my hand on something, okay?
Right.
She demanded to know whether I reached out to the school board on a couple things, yes, but on the budget, no, okay? And so you just stuck with me until I answered the question, which the answer is no. So how do you deal with some of these, what I might refer to as politically sensitive questions that never really get addressed like they should?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like,
Exactly.
give me one.
Well,
Building use.
So building
So
Let's
use.
use building use.
Yeah,
So that's what you were just
Yeah.
talking about, and I was
Yeah.
trying to think
I mean,
of one.
what's less personal than real estate?
Well, I happen to love some buildings, but but building use. So what is creating that problem, and what's going on with it?
Yeah.
And there may be some politically sensitive issues, but you know how at some point you just want to know the question. So I was sitting there thinking about what you said, and I was like, get the politicians out of the way.
Exactly.
Okay. And what you do is you take people who are going to ask. They're not worried about the consequences of it. They're going to ask those questions and go, so why are you only using 70% of the building? What are you doing with and what are you paying for it, and why are you not using it? So they're going to ask,
How are you heating it?
how are you heating?
lighting it?
Well, whatever it is, but you ask the basic questions, and you hold us, whether it's the council, the school board, the mayor, whoever it is, the department head, we have to answer your questions.
And really, it's not as hard to really answer as you think. when you're only using 70% of your building, it means that your student enrollment has decreased,
Yeah.
okay? So are you going to take the other classrooms that are there and let them remain in the cold? No, you have to heat the entire building.
That's right.
So therefore, we have to come up with constructive ways as to how do I best use the facility? Is it combining schools? Within the next 2 years, you may have an influx of students coming back to the school, and then you do this all over again. It can be a constant, plane ride, for lack of a better term. But there is no way to know how many students are going to enroll, how many students are going to be there in December, and how many will be there in June. So it's...
Well, do the numbers change? So
Yeah, I'm kind
Of course.
why is that? I mean, we
People
know how
move.
many people live.
People move.
But
Yeah.
people move during the school year.
And not only that,
Right.
yes, I mean, they may enroll in your school this week, and next week they're in a school across town. Also, when you look at the number of students that are in charter schools, not to pick on charter schools because there's some great things going on, but when you look at that, it leaves that void here and fills up over here. So the students will have to have
But
somewhere
if I
to
took,
have space.
if I took 10 years of data, all right, in every school in the city, and how their enrollment changed day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, would I not then have a decent amount of information to predict what's going to happen this year? Or maybe next year?
Well, yeah, but I think there's still a bigger issue. I mean,
Yeah.
because the demographics of the city are changing so fast.
Very, very.
You've got a lack of affordable housing. People
Yes.
are selling their houses
Exactly.
and having to move further out.
Exactly.
Their kids go with them. And so you could get a change of 50 to 100 students at a school. You can guess. But what we're talking about is, what I'm trying to do, and I think that's where I thought you were headed, was, okay, so I give Gracie School a certain amount of money based upon how many people are there that first week. In 2 months, that number may have dropped
Number can
significantly.
change.
It may have stayed the same,
Yes.
or it may have increased significantly.
Exactly.
So how does she deal with her budget? Does she get more money after 2 months or 3 months because all of a sudden she's got 50 additional kids she's got to take care of? She needs an additional teacher. She needs an additional classroom. What does she need?
Custodial staff.
And I don't know.
Well, I think
Cafeteria.
the answer is yes, she's supposed to get more money, and I think under the state funding mechanism, she does.
I don't know. That's not adequate here.
Is that not right?
It is, but it's not adequate here.
It's not.
And actually, it's only measured at certain times of the
Yeah.
year.
You don't
That's
get it
kind of where
right
they
away.
got hosed last year, was it got measured at year's end,
Yeah.
and they took a hit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that money does not come next
But
week.
I think what your broader point when it comes to budgeting in schools is that when we have these conversations, we immediately go to, well, you just don't like kids, or you don't like education, or whatever.
Why are you looking at me? I love education. I love kids.
No. No, I've had that, I've tried to talk about real estate, and I've
Yeah.
had that conversation, instead of like talking about real estate.
Well, so, and I'll look at Mr. Cooper, because he's always trying to figure out the logistics of these things, and I know that we have to move on. But one of the suggestions that I would make in terms of the report is, first of all, a follow-up behind it. So we turn in the report. I'm not sure if the commission, besides having a deadline, does the commission go away? Or does it
We're
stay?
running 3 years.
It's
right.
It's a 3-year,
It's
so.
3 years, and I did
fine.
indicate that this is a first report,
Okay.
and that because of the time frame, January to April, to come up with a report,
Right.
we necessarily had to focus on short-term fixes,
Okay.
things to get you guys through the.
Okay, so what's the recommendation behind, how do you follow up to make sure that anybody even looked at the report and anybody's even doing it?
Come quiz you.
I know, but then also, how do you follow up and ask us questions that we really should be asking ourselves, and sometimes we don't?
With the first, sorry, Jim.
That's okay.
The first use of this is the budget. It's the FY20 budget. If this is useful, then the budget chairman, who is formerly on this committee, then uses these sort of suggestions to then review with the departments as to,
The
is
needs.
there additional money? Where can we get it? What's a good idea, bad idea? this suggestion was made for your department. Are we going to do that or not? So that's the first output. It happens in June. So,
And then coming back to us with kind of, when they say, well, this is not a good idea and this is why, well, then not letting it die there, if you
Right.
will.
well,
And
yes.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's where we have an ongoing role, is to then maybe go back and meet with that department and say, well, okay, maybe that one didn't, what would make that work?
Yes, and for the chairman and the council to say, wow, we're going to need $15 million a year long-term in affordable housing, what long-term things should we be doing that might make that possible?
Exactly.
So what if the budget, working with the budget chair, there was a specially called budget meeting, or it just hooked onto a budget meeting, where at least the initial steps were brought up, this information was given to them, and you had a meeting just to talk about this. So you actually, instead of
Have a dialogue.
the 3 weeks
Exactly.
of, having the discussions with department heads where we talk about all kinds of different things, this is more focused to, okay, these were the 4 recommendations or whatever. This is what we're talking about. What do you think? And you bring in the necessary people and you have the necessary discussion.
I would have assumed that you all would require or request a presentation.
Never assume anything.
Okay. I know what that makes you at me.
Right.
I assumed that you would request a presentation on this report.
We would, but I think it could be more focused on, instead of like, okay, we're going to talk about the intermediate staff, blah, blah, blah.
No, we
It's like,
focus on the
Focus
near
on-
term. The intent of the report, and we can drop the intermediate and long-term
I
stuff
think
if
you
you
can
want.
leave it, but-
But the intent, yes, ma'am.
Can I interrupt real quick and I'm just quoting directly from the
Resolution says.
What the resolution says, the commission shall focus its efforts during the remainder of fiscal year 2019 on identifying cost savings, cost avoidance, and revenue enhancements that can be realized in the fiscal year 2020 operating budget.
Yeah.
So that should be the focus, is this short term.
This short term.
Short term.
So that's but you can't really talk about some of this stuff unless you talk about long term because of things.
Yeah,
This is
I mean-
government, but.
I understand.
But I assume we would come and do
Yeah.
some sort of presentation to
Yeah,
y'all,
but-
and then you could ask lots of questions with
But,
folks on.
but I think it has to be, and I know John's getting ready to say something, but I think it has to be, that information has to be focused, specific. We're going to talk about these, here's the rest of the report and read it, but we're going to talk about those
This,
first
this,
4
this.
steps.
Okay.
And this is what they mean, read them, and then we're going to come and talk about it.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind that the school board will be in session with the mayor on his budget. That should be coming up before too long, right? So that will give us a better picture as well. as to what
Well,
to
he just had his state of school address, so we have some understanding.
Yeah, but I mean, when they come to sit down with you,
John, what do you think? You're getting ready to say something?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, yes. And to your point, advocating for schools, part of this is to get people to be, I think, aware of revenues and savings, but really the creative tension. That if you're spending it over here, you're not spending it on
Right.
classroom supplies.
right?
Right, and so is that a good enough use over here for this, be there, and then, but to make the council aware of the building blocks of the trade, that this practice over here are not really collecting any rent for this space, means you're gonna have less money over here in this
Exactly.
space.
Exactly.
And for this group to prepare, I'm very appreciative, of Margaret sitting here saying, maybe a good idea, you can't do it because of the lease, right? That's why we're here,
Right, yeah.
right? Is to go ahead and cut that out
Yeah.
and then only to deliver things that have had some level of finance and legals oversight on it.
Exactly.
We may all want to raise that $2 tax, but if we can't, we can't. Okay, let's move on.
We just don't get the benefit of it.
Okay, right.
Go down to
That's
the
what I want
Titans
to do, is
and
give
say,
them more money.
One last thing, and then I'll be quiet. But so one of the things is, particularly at a presentation of the Blue Ribbon Commission, particularly with the school stuff, not only we open it up to our budget committee, but we invite the school budget committee as well, and we have a joint meeting where we're
I
all
think it's a
asking
great
questions.
idea.
So we're all
I
there
really
together.
do. I
Okay.
really do.
All right. Brian, do you have any?
Thank you.
Any? Stan?
Oh, pass.
Okay. All right, then if I could just go quickly, oh, Margaret.
I have a lot of editorial comments, and I'm happy to submit a red line version to you
Fine.
later. There are a couple of things that I did want to kind of direct some attention so that everybody hears about it now and can think about it. You know, you have the inclusion of these charts throughout the document. And I think it's probably important, because I don't feel like I read this anywhere in here, to know when it says other suggestions, where they came from, and also does inclusion of them in the report indicate that this commission is supporting all of these suggestions? Because I would be.
That needs to go in the preamble.
Something.
No, it needs to go in the preamble
Can we
as to
talk
what they are.
about, can we
right?
talk about sources then? Let's, because I wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
So the information that we collected from the public, the responses to the budget request, which is the most of the grids there, and the discussions we've had, and the anonymous, submissions. There was a lot of overlap. There were, in a few cases, just, things that aren't going to happen. There were things that could be lumped into general activities, like the real estate footprint, for example. So in identifying the source, we could say, okay, this came from a department head, this came from the public, but in a lot of cases, they're really from 2 or 3 different sources. So how would you propose that we address? I agree with you, the source is important. And this could also be just included as an appendix, as I could have an appendix with the public submissions, an appendix with the department submissions, and just leave the tables out, and that would be better for readability too, out of the body of the text.
I think including it as an appendix with some general description of where they came from is good. Also, one of the things that the ordinance calls for us to do is to rank the proposals as to whether they, where's the ranking? Rank based on value and feasibility, and also including an evaluation of whether it's recommended, not recommended, or neutral for each proposal. So if all of these, line item suggestions get included in the report, then there is some expectation that we have ranked them, whether we recommend them.
Is that required to be as part of this initial report? Because that's going to be, that's a long throw to do between now and April 1st.
And one thing that I might recommend then is, if it is included as an appendix, that there be some, qualifying language that says that the recommendation, the ranking and the recommendation will come at some later date, but that we just wanted to get it out there to let people know that these recommendations existed, something along those lines.
And that way it will give us more time to really digest all of this.
Well, if it's not something in the initial, to be accomplished by, or recommended by the committee before the FY20 budget is
We don't have
approved.
a mechanism for even
then-
doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
because for the FY20 budget, we are talking about a pretty limited number of things, because it's March. So if we want to focus the report just on those, you can do this year. Let's focus on these 5 or 6 things, raise revenue, cut expenses. And then we can, frame up, and I sort of tried to do this, frame up the intermediate and long-term discussion areas, generally speaking. And then include in the appendix where these sources, as this is where we drew, this was the pool in which we drew from to consider these options.
And make clear that's not a process that's over yet. that
And
people
make,
can
okay.
still- Can still,
Continuation.
Does that sound acceptable to everyone to do it that way? Okay,
what else to do.
okay. All right. So what I will do, given this conversation, is make these changes to the report.
I'll get you my red line.
Okay, and you'll get,
Tracy's got some. She'll send me.
and Tracy will give me some red line. And then, we can either meet next Friday in order to meet our April 1 deadline, or we can go and meet on our regular schedule in April, assuming the vice mayor is giving us extra time.
Since I have a lot of authority in this matter, I'll give you extra time.
Okay, so that
If
would,
somebody yells and says we didn't hit the April 1st, they can come yell at me. That's fine.
so that would, the 2nd and 4th, so that would
I'm
put our
looking at
next.
Ray. Do you want to yell at me?
I would not yell at you.
Okay, thank you.
I think this would be a great idea.
Okay.
And I'm still having difficulty finding all this stuff on the website. The IT people have not been as good as Brian.
So we need the 5th, is that what we're looking at here?
We do the 2nd and 4th, right?
I know,
So
but
that-
I'm just thinking if we wanted to have a minimum meeting.
I would recommend you meet on the 5th so
Oh.
that you kind of maybe conclude to get this thing moving. I know the mayor's budget hearings are going to start soon, and then we'll get our stuff. City Metro address is the 30th, so, and then we'll start looking at it.
Okay, so let's plan a not meeting next Friday, but April the 5th, which would be out of our normal schedule, all right? And then, I'll take into consideration all of these comments. We will focus the report on, here's what you need to do for this budget year, here's what we're working on for subsequent years. You guys, both Margaret and Dave, will send me the editorial comments. And are there any other, does that sound like a plan?
I will not be at the meeting on the 12th. We have a family.
Okay. If we wrap this up on the 5th, we may
Okay.
not have to meet on the 12th.
Okay.
So we'll
That's
let you know
good.
about that.
That's great.
But we are meeting the 29th?
We are not meeting the 29th,
Okay,
we're
just
meeting
the
April the
5th.
5th,
April 5th.
which is not in our cycle here, but,
The 29th was not on our cycle.
yeah, 29th was on our cycle.
I assume,
What?
same time.
Same time, April the 5th.
I like that.
Well, thank you. I think I might have pilfered that one. Okay.
Move
Anything?
to adjourn?
Move to adjourn? All right. Do we have a second? All in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much.
I do want to ask on the record, when we search.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.